Now that we've learned all about learning, it's time to learn about learning English. And if I say learning one more time, it's going to be 6 learnings in this very short rhyme. There are many obvious reasons why everyone should learn English. It's the lingua franca, it's the language of the internet, it's the language of technology because most startups are US based and hit the American market first, and many others. These are all important reasons, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. However, in this video, what I would like to talk about is the topic of fluency, and why I think it's so crucial that I decided to dedicate an entire video to it. Before that, I would like to talk about one of the topics that seems to be self-explanatory at first. The fact that most people can speak English and therefore most resources are available in English is obvious. What might be slightly less obvious is the fact that it matters most in the scientific field. Picture this. Let's say French is your native language and your English is also quite good, but obviously your French is better. Now let's say that you're about to write a scientific paper. Here's the thing. Consider writing it in English, even if you're studying in France and therefore all of your lectures are in French. Your university should be fine with that, but obviously talk to your supervisors first. I'm suggesting writing the paper in English not only because most resources are available in English, but because you're obligated to reference all the resources that you use in the scientific paper. And if you start translating all the English resources into French, you open yourself to all kinds of unnecessary mistakes and challenges. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm only saying what I would do if I were you. And in fact, this is exactly what I did when I was a student. Alright, let's get to fluency. Firstly, understand that fluency is a self-defined concept. You define what it means to be fluent for you. It can range from I can read and understand a letter, to I can pick up a sexy native senorita at a bar, to I can become a freaking Queen of England, or king, if that's your thing. So why is fluency so important? Why isn't it enough to know just a little bit of English? Well, firstly, as I just said, you define how much is enough. But let me tell you a weird story about how I understood what the word integer means when I was in my late 20s, which was more than 5 years after I started programming. If you're watching this right now and you have no idea what an integer is, don't turn this video off. It might change your life. Or at least you will have a cool conversation starter. Don't forget the sexy native senorita at the bar. Think about it. No child in the history of humanity failed to learn his own native language. Mental disabilities aside. I don't want to get into details of learning languages here, but basically, as a kid, you listen to thousands of hours of examples of your parents talking and create memories. These memories will be overwritten every time you hear the same word again and again and again, and almost as a side effect, your brain creates more and more associations while doing that. These are visual clues, smells, feelings, etc. This is why in my previous video that you can find over here, I mentioned that it is advised to learn in different places and put all of your senses to work. If I say ice cream, then probably you have a virtual ice cream appearing in front of you and maybe you want one now, and that's it. But not if you're a native speaker. In this case, your brain will jump straight to a taste of a banana ice cream and the last time you ate it with a friend and when it was and what you were talking about, and now you're probably thinking about grabbing your phone and sending a message to that friend and asking her when she has time to catch up. As a native speaker, you don't just look up the definition of ice cream in some in-memory dictionary of yours. And if you do, friendship over. So what does ice cream have to do with integers? Well, integers are whole numbers that can also be negative. 0, 1, 2, 3 are integers, -1, -2, -3 are also integers, -2.3 are not integers, 4.5 are also not integers. Now that I'm done explaining basic math to you like to a caveman, your brain should have jumped to the name of the concept in your native language, which my brain didn't do the first time I was learning about it, which was in the context of programming languages. I was concentrated on learning a programming language. My brain was distracted, so to say. Sure, I understood what integers were, but I didn't question the word, so I didn't look it up. I just thought it's a programming concept, and only programmers know it or care about it. But as it turns out, every kid who just happens to be a native English speaker knows what a freaking integer is. As you can imagine, this is just an example. A lot of names of the concepts in programming are simply reused English words. Words like object, function, scope, if, while, recursion, etc. The programming world is in English. The keywords of every programming language are in English. The comments and documentation are written in English. The internet made it possible for programmers to work remotely. The distances span cities and sometimes even countries and continents. Even local teams are often international. Transportation gets more accessible every day. People travel to distant countries without knowing the language because English is enough. One more thing before I leave. When I was 16, my family moved from Ukraine to Germany, and I just happened to have been learning English since kindergarten. By the way, fun fact for the English speakers, kindergarten is a German word. And fun fact for the German speakers, yes, English speakers do use the word kindergarten and a few others, like for example, Gesundheit. Anyway, I noticed a subtle difference between the two approaches to teaching. Back in Ukraine, they seem to be rather concerned with oral skills, listening and comprehending speech, and simply talking to people. Whereas in Germany, they were rather concerned with reading and technical translations. Maybe it was due to the fact that in the middle school you do more one thing and in high school you do more the other. So if I had stayed in Ukraine, my experiences would have been the same. I don't know. So before you get all defensive in the comments, this was my personal experience. I'm just some guy on the internet and not a minister of education. I will say, however, that even though the pupils in Germany are encouraged to talk, back in Ukraine we were pretty much forced to do so. We were asked to learn pages of text by heart and then retell them in front of the entire class. This is quite a huge difference to simply summarizing a chapter of some book in a few sentences, as it was done in my German school. And if you visited Germany, you know that the level of English here is pretty high. And yet, people feel uncomfortable speaking English. They will be more than happy to jump back to German as soon as they find out that you understand a few German words. By the way, this is also related to the concept of fear of making mistakes that I mentioned in my previous video. I know I'm overgeneralizing here. Everybody's different. But there is a reason why I'm telling you all this. And this reason is not to put Germany to shame. This reason is as follows. Communication channels for everything, including education, are always evolving. Currently, video content is getting more attention. You're watching this video right now instead of reading a blog because I chose video as a media to reach more people. Once I start recording my screen and you start following programming tutorials, you don't want to concentrate on subtitles instead of the content, believe me. I strongly advise you to invest some time in listening and comprehending skills. Quick tip. TV shows are easier to understand than movies. With the huge exception of Game of Thrones, in a TV show, usually you already know all of the characters and the frame of the show. Whereas in a movie, it takes some time to understand the plot, and by that time, half of the movie is already over. Before I leave, quick shout out to Svetlana Petrovna, who was my English teacher back in Ukraine. If by some miracle you are watching this, and by even a bigger miracle you remember who I am, then thank you from the bottom of my heart. Alright, we made it to the end. Fluency and oral skills are important, so subscribe to our community and let's talk. It's Vlad, see you next time. Come on, just press the button. There we go. Seriously?